the matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA096.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Recorded this computer, recording is in progress, and we're alive.
Woohoo!
So, yeah, okay, let's get started. Welcome to... I don't need to clap. Welcome to Doomed to Fail, the Red Flaggy podcast where we explore a historic and true crime story about red flags that were being ignored. I'm Farz, joined here by Taylor. Hi, Taylor.
Hi. We don't have to super rush. I'm fine.
So, what are you doing after this? You're doing a recital?
No, I'm going to Palm Springs for a drag queen bingo with Girl Scouts, but it doesn't start until 1, and we're totally fine. So I don't have to leave for 2 hours. So it was fine.
If Fox News heard you were doing that, you'd be the most famous woman in history of America.
I love the Girl Scouts. The Girl Scouts are very progressive. They have God in their pledge, but they're you don't have to say it. It's no big deal. They are so super cool with it. The Boy Scouts are you can be any religion as long as you're a religion. And you're what? So
good. It's really
the Girl
gross,
Scouts
actually.
are the best. It's real gross, yeah.
Do we want to share the amazing news that happened this week with our listeners?
What happened?
Pat Robertson died.
Oh God, I know.
How fucking awesome. The world literally got a little bit brighter, just a little bit better.
God,
this
what
week.
A fucking asshole. I know. I said this on my Instagram, but for me, it's just such a bummer that I feel like when you die, it's just lights out and there's no realization, but I wish there was but also did he really believe that shit? I don't know. What piece of shit. He just wanted to steal money from people.
Hold on, I'm looking up my favorite Pat Robertson quotes about feminists, abortionists, and gays.
That we did 9/11?
The gays are the ones that did 9/11. That's what it was.
Oh,
yeah,
9/11.
Yeah,
it was so gay. What a gay day.
Yeah. God, what
a
scumbag.
God,
because the influence, it's not okay, one person having that much of an outsized influence on so much of the shitty things about our society is because people listen to him.
I know. I know.
He goes, okay, so here's what he said. He goes, this is Pat Robertson's quote. I really believe that the pagans and the abortionists and the feminists and the gays and the lesbians who are actively trying to make that an alternative lifestyle, the ACLU, People for the American Way, all of them who have tried to secularize America, I point the finger in their face and say, you helped this happen. He's talking about 9/11.
The ACLU? I mean, I do feel like the ACLU wastes money because I donated $20 10 years ago and they send me a letter every single day. So I'm there's no way that the amount of mail you've sent me costs less than $20. But, and then you have people all the Republicans out there or whatever being we don't want any diversity. We don't want any other lifestyles besides our own, which sucks. Ugh.
Do you know what David Churchill does that I think is really funny is he will donate $1 to Republican candidates and then have them spend all their money mailing him letters asking for more money, which is kind of funny.
Do you remember when all those K-pop fans bought all the tickets to Donald Trump's event?
Yes.
They were free tickets, but they reserved all of them, so they thought that thousands of people were coming, and not thousands of people were coming.
So good, so good.
Glad Pat Robinson is dead.
Yes. The world is a much better place. Cool. Let's go ahead and dive right in. So, who goes first today?
I believe you do.
I do. Okay.
And okay, so I forgot to think about what my drink was going to be, but I think I have one. So
you want to give me yours first?
Yeah. My drink is old milk. Imagine that it's hot and the milk has not been in the fridge for a while.
Kind of sounds good.
Ew, no, it doesn't. It's going to make you sick.
Mix it with some sugar. Beat the curds up with some sugar.
Oh my God, I'm going to throw up. No.
Okay. I am going with a beer that I never find, but I was in love with when I was living in Florida. Boddington's. It is a Manchester beer.
You said that before.
Wait, did I do? Oh my God, I've done Manchester before, haven't I?
Yes, because you know why I know that? I have at one point I was like, oh, I'm gonna write down a list of what the drinks are, and I only wrote down one thing, and the one thing I wrote down was Boddington's. I think I even have it written down here. Yeah, January 21st, Boddington's Brewery in Manchester.
Taylor is holding up her diary to show me this. That's incredible, Taylor.
I'm gonna write today's date as well.
Just write ×2 and then put today's date.
I have this whole page for times that you mentioned Boddington's. So row
I
2.
love Boddington's. It's so good. And it's so hard to find. I don't know why it's so hard to find, but
They are so hard to find.
it's delicious. So I picked Boddington's because my story, I guess, like the last one, is based in the UK. It's based in Manchester. So God, it's weird. I totally forgot I did that other story that was in Manchester. Yeah. Memories
Can you do the whole thing in a Manchester accent?
I don't know what a Manchester accent is.
I don't either. I feel like I want to go a little bit Boston, be like Manchester. But that's not right,
Boston,
obviously.
yeah. The problem is that if you don't nail it, you just sound stupid. That's the issue. So I'm actually going to go a bit historic with this one. So I'm going to do a really, really old-timey one. It's a super, super famous one. It's a super famous crime that happened about 60 years ago in Manchester. Despite how famous it is, I really didn't know much about it. I don't know how much you know about it, but I'm going to be discussing the Moor-ders with Ian Brady and Myra Hindley. Are you aware of these guys?
A little bit. I feel like I know weird stuff about Myra Hindley later in life. Is she still alive?
No. She died a long time ago, like 2005 or something.
Okay. I know a little bit. Tell me more.
Yeah, so you probably know because I know we have the exact same podcast diet. So like you probably also listened to the Fred and Rose West episode on last podcast, and Rose West ended up in like a sexual relationship at one point with Myra because they were the two most notorious women in UK history.
And Myra's like blonde, right? Or like she was.
I'm gonna get into that.
Okay. Yes, that's the thing that happened later in life that I remembered. Okay.
Exactly. So she was not blonde naturally, but every photo you find of her, she is blonde. But I'll explain why that was here in a moment.
No one really is. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll explain why that is. I'm gonna mute my phone so people can not hear that, and I'll continue on. So we're gonna start with our main antagonist of the story. Wait. Yeah, antagonist. Antagonist is bad, right? Protagonist is good. Yeah. Yes. They're antagonists. They're not good people. So, okay, Taylor, per usual, I'm going to go ahead and just say that we are probably going to disagree on a lot of things here. I am going to err on the side that I thought Myra was a complete and absolute monster, and society seems to think that like she was just some poor put upon girl, and Ian kind of ruined her, and it's like. It's a crazy, whatever. You tell me what you think about it when we get to it. But we're going to start with our story with Ian Brady. So Ian was born in Glasgow, Scotland in 1938. He was raised by his mother and pretty much didn't know who his father was at all. He was a pretty precocious child, and he was considered above average intelligence. So he was accepted into a gifted school that was called Shawlands Academy. He would do these like stupid petty crimes, like stealing things here and there. And ultimately at 15 years old, he ended up leaving and starting to work in various odd jobs. I guess like back then, I mean, yeah, it makes sense, right? Like 9-year-olds were chimney sweeps. So I guess you're at 15, you just retire out of school and just start working. That's what you do in old time England, I guess.
Yeah. There's like either you go to like university if you're rich. Other than that, you just like get a job in the coal mine. I don't know. I would have been coal there. Soot mine.
I would have been a great chimney sweep, I think. That would have been so fun with a pageboy hat. I'd wear a vest. And I had the pocket watch already, so I could wear the pocket watch and the vest and a pageboy hat and do like a little chimney thing.
Well, that's definitely something you would have had to do when you were a child because you're way too big now to do that.
You think I'm too big?
Yes. I don't know. I've never been in a chimney, but I feel like you're very broad. You're broader than a chimney. But also, I have no idea.
Sweet. I think that's sweet. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, you no longer have the body of a 9-year-old boy. So
damn it. These opportunities are ruined for me. So ultimately, at some point, Ian would end up moving back in with his mom. And at that point, she will have left Glasgow for Manchester, England, and picked up a new life there. Again, he would just keep doing these stupid petty crimes and keep getting locked up over and over again. At around 19 years old, he's released from jail. He was apparently there for a couple of years. Apparently, he got like he had bad treatment in jail. Like he got the shit kicked out of him in jail. I mean, he's a strange little kid, right? And he decided when he got released from jail that, okay, that's it. I'm gonna button up. I'm gonna go on the straight and narrow. I'm gonna figure my life out. This is going to jail and do these petty crimes. That is not the route for me. And so
Yeah,
he
he's obviously
started.
bad at it if he keeps going to jail.
I don't know. If I committed crimes when I was 15, I'd probably go to jail too. I bet I can get away with a lot of crimes now. Like, what should I do? Should I embezzle something? Want to bet? Want to bet that I can embezzle $1 million?
Yes. Remember when I put that post-it on your desk that said, to do, plan murders, commit murders?
I do remember that. I think I have a picture of that somewhere. Okay, so we'll hold on the embezzlement of the murder part.
Okay.
So he taught himself how to do what's called they call it bookkeeping, which I think just means accounting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he self-taught himself bookkeeping. He would study at the library and do all this. Again, he was a really precocious kid. He would read a lot and all that stuff. And ultimately, he ended up getting this job at some random chemical company doing their accounting work. He would be really into Nazi stuff. So it's funny because
Wait, is it post-Nazi? This is post-World War II, right?
this is right after World War II.
Okay. They just lost, but he's still into it.
Well, okay, so at this point when I was researching this, I was like, okay, yeah, obviously, like World War II ended like 5, 6, 7 years ago, and you're in England who was just carpet bombed by Nazis. So you probably have some fascination with who were these people? What was this all about? Like I understood it at this point more of like he's a historical dude who wants to know what happened, not like he likes Nazis.
Okay.
Later on, going back to the blonde hair thing with Myra, my opinion changed.
Gross,
Yeah.
gross.
Yeah. So there was one other thing that I couldn't verify because multiple sources said different things about this. Multiple sources would say either he did or he didn't torture and kill a ton of cats and dogs this time when he was a kid. I'm leaning towards no, and I'm actually basing that off of what Ian himself said because later on we'll find out that he was pretty vocal about everything else. It was kind of like when Jeffrey Dahmer was caught, and they were like, "Did you do this one?" He's like, "No, I mean, I told you everything. I would have told you if I did that one." It's like, why would I lie to you?
I have no more secrets.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So like in this case, Ian's the one who's like, "No, I like loved animals. Like I never would have hurt an animal," and everybody else is like, "No, he was a serial killer who like killed all these dogs and did all this." It's like. You probably didn't. You probably just made that up because you're like, we have to have some pattern here. Yeah, I don't know. That's my take on
or
it.
maybe he like killed a dog, but in like an old timey way. You know, like you didn't like take your dog to the vet to be put down.
Yeah, you just hit it with a rock until it died. You know what's funny is Luna's sleeping right there.
Luna, we're not going to kill you.
We're not killing Luna. So okay, tell me if I'm wrong about this. So Joe. Our friend Joe Conti is here visiting, staying with me in Austin. It's incredible. Known each other, like at this point, this configuration, people have known each other for like 10, 11 years.
Weird.
And Joe shows up and he's like, I'm going to take him out. We're going to go out in East Austin. If you're in Austin, we're going to go to Kitty Cohen, if you're familiar with that, and then La Holly. And Joe is like, my only request is don't bring your dog. You shouldn't bring your dog. We're going out. We're going to have a good time. Don't bring your dog. And I was like, there's no chance I'm not bringing my dog. Like, why on earth would I go out and not bring my? It makes everything in Austin's outside. Everybody brings their dogs. Like, why would I not? And like, it just blew his mind that I would bring my dog. And it's like, no, of course I'm gonna. Like, and I did. And it was a great time. And she socialized and she had a great time. And it was really fun. But I do think that now we infantilize dogs in a way that they probably didn't when Ian was growing up in England. And so he probably did just bash a dog's head in with a baseball bat. So
exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. Like it's different.
It's different. It's definitely different.
Mm-hmm.
That was the most long-winded way of just circling back to he just cracked a dog's skull open at some point. So we are going on to so that's our wrap up of Ian Brady. Just generally speaking, smart, precocious, might be crazy, might not. Don't
Sometimes a fuck up. Yeah.
Yeah. Myra is our second person in this equation, and she was actually born in Manchester, or just outside of a little town, in 1942. So that would make her 4 years younger than Ian. It sounds like her childhood was mostly just punctuated with abuse and general poverty.
Hmm.
Her dad sounds like he was like a military bro and kind of expected Myra to be super, super tough and just like aggro and all that.
Hmm.
You know, it's interesting because like psychologists after the fact would say that the way her dad treated her or told her how to treat others made her desensitized to violence and emotionally
Hmm.
distant and this stuff. But like really all it was like, hey, if someone hits you, you hit them back twice as hard. Like it was one of those, like that's what it actually read like. It wasn't like anytime you're upset, react to it aggressively with violence. Like that's not what it
Right.
was. It was just, don't be stepping whatever. What's the word? Step
Well,
stool?
doormat. I don't
Doormat, thank
know.
you.
Um, I feel like, have you seen the stuff that Arnold Schwarzenegger has been saying lately about his dad?
No.
Because he's pretty much like my dad was like a Nazi because it was that time, and he came home and he was a terrible, terrible, broken person, and he like beat the shit out of us and was an alcoholic because of the trauma that he went through. And so, he was like, he's like his caution to America is like stop being assholes because you're going to ruin generations of people, with this like anger and this hate, like no matter what happens, like in the worst case, which is like World War II and concentration camps and all of those things, or like best case, like you have these like lives that are just like horrible and like abusive and everyone's angry. So even on like the English side where they won, like the trauma that those dads went through, and then they had to like come home, and like even on our side too, like my great grandma had three brothers who went to World War II, came home, never did anything else. They were PTSD till the end of their lives. They lived in her mom's attic. They called them the Three Kings. They just hung out in the attic because what they saw was so awful. They couldn't do anything else,
That's wild.
you know?
So
So
one thing
imagine
that
coming home.
from that, like one thing that I've learned a lot of recently is ketamine treatment. So apparently in Austin, there's a lot of these ketamine clinics that apparently are really, really good for working through. Does your shirt say future corpse?
It does.
So
That's my future.
ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. Anyway, also your story there just reminded me of that one scene in oh God, Schindler's List where they're burning the piles of body at Auschwitz, and that one Nazi soldier takes his hat off and just starts screaming into the sky because like I don't know, it feels like as a human you know when everything's wrong, even if you're a Nazi. I
Yeah,
don't
I mean,
know.
and I mean, so many of them had to be. I mean, they're all bad, 100%. But some they were on so much meth and so many drugs and so drunk and all these things to be able to do those inhuman things.
Yeah,
You
wild,
know,
wild shit. Sorry. Okay, going back to Future Corpse. That's an awesome shirt. We should make like I'm gonna figure out where you bought that and buy that shirt.
it's from a woman. Her Instagram is The Good Death. She writes. She's a former mortician and she has a YouTube channel called Ask a Mortician. And she wrote a great book called When Smoke Gets in Your Eyes, and it's about death and what happens to bodies. And it made me feel fine. Made me feel much better about death.
It's Caitlin Doty at the
Yeah.
Good Death. So holler
Mhm.
at Caitlin and get some shirts because that is awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, back to Myra. Okay, overall, that's basically her childhood. Poverty, dad is kind of an abusive asshole, but also he wants her to stick up for herself. She develops like a knack for being kind of like a tough girl, but that's mostly it. She was mostly normal. Like everybody who knew her thought that she was well liked and cool, and like, there was nothing wrong with her basically at this point. So, and that's the part of it that annoys me later on when people were like it was all Ian that did. It's like, dude, like I don't know how many girls I've been with, but none of them could ever have convinced me to like
Mhm.
kill somebody. Like nobody's that charming, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So at 18 years old, or when Myra was 18 years old, she finally meets Ian for the first time at that chemical company that Ian was a bookkeeper for. Ian would have been like 22 to 23, give or take, at this time.
Hmm.
He would eventually ask her out on a date, and they would start going out together. It was weird. Like the Wikipedia article on this said that like they would just go to X-rated movies and then go back to his apartment. Like it was like what? Like that was your date?
Ew.
Like it was
I
so
mean,
gross.
that's a weird first date.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like
Like later, if you're like, this is our jam, then do whatever you want. But if it's your first date, I feel like you should go out for ice cream. But I don't know.
I feel like it needs to be like 3 years into dating when it's like let's just start casually every Friday going to an X-rated theater. Like it's like what? But it sounded like this was almost like close to the very beginning. It's like they would just go to these movies together,
All right.
and this is where the Nazi thing comes back into effect because Ian would constantly talk to Myra about Nazis. And like that's where like it flipped for me, which is like this is probably more January 6th than just interest in
Yeah.
history type of a thing. And then, like you mentioned earlier, so the very first photo, if you look up, if you Google Myra Hindley, the
Yeah,
very
I'm doing it right
first
now.
photo of her is blonde hair, like crimson deep red lipstick, is what shows up. It's
Hmm.
gonna be black and white. You don't know it, but it's gonna be crimson red.
Yeah.
And dude, she was a brunette. Like she wasn't born that way. Like she did this for Ian because I guess like nothing specifically said it, but he had this like obsession with like the Aryan concept. And I guess Myra really liked him a lot and wanted him to be impressed with her, and so she wanted to look more traditionally Aryan, and so she did this to herself. So
Hmm.
such is life. Yeah, one statement that Myra would later say when she was after she'd been incarcerated or whatever, she said that Ian could have told her anything. This is a quote: that the earth was flat, that the moon was made of green cheese, that the sun rose in the west, and I would have believed him.
Hmm.
Like that's her. And I guess type of person. Like apparently Ian was really really charming. Like other people would also say this about him. Like he had that psychopathic thing where he would just grip your attention and make you want to like just follow him wherever he went. So one thing I wrote here was like, again, nobody would ever have convinced me that I've never liked anybody enough. I mean, I don't know, maybe I've never liked anybody enough. That's what it is. I've never met anybody that I liked enough who asked me to kill somebody that I would. Maybe I will one day, but I haven't yet.
Yeah, I don't know if I would. I feel like
If Ian told, or if Juan told you to like kill your neighbor right now, would you do it?
no. I
Okay.
don't want to go to jail and I have
Okay.
children to take care of.
If Juan said he was going to kill the neighbor, but you have to help bury the body, would you do it?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like then potentially. 'Cause I'd be
It's
scared.
the slippery slope.
I'd be scared, you
This is
know?
how it starts. This is exactly how it starts.
I
But
feel like I'd be very afraid.
yeah, but objectivity still exists. Like whether like okay, I'm in love with this person, they're amazing, they're great, whatever. There's still objective truth, and objectively, it is wrong to do the things that these people ended up doing. And like people later on are gonna be like, poor Myra, poor Myra. It's like no, not poor Myra. Like she still had objective reality to contend with.
Yeah. Was
So
he abusing her?
yeah, of course, yeah. I mean, this is
Well, I
like
mean, so that's the thing too.
1950s England. Like punching the woman in the face was just like normal discourse. Like that was not like. I mean, I would not say they had an abusive relationship,
Outside of
but
like whatever was normal then, which was bad.
yeah, today it would be an abusive relationship. Back then, it was like he just loves me that much. You know, one of
Right.
those
Well,
things.
that's part of it too, I feel like.
Right, right. So yeah, they actually had like part of the relationship was also like just like they started veering into like stuff that me and you like to talk about, which is like a lot of true crime gore stuff. Like I actually think they would have been fans of our show if they were still alive because they sort like they would go to like the library and just constantly check out books. And they, oh man, I didn't write it down. What's that? What's that? The Marquis de Sade book.
I don't know. I'm gonna look it up.
120 Days of Sod, I think it's called. It's a crazy intense. They made a movie about it. It is a crazy intense, like torture porn book.
120 Days of Sodom. Yep.
There it is. Yeah, and it's a movie too. It's super graphic. Like I wouldn't really recommend anybody watching it. It's very torture and like sexual. It's gross. But like that's the kind of things that are into. They would constantly check out books on stuff like that or other true crime books that they would constantly be digesting and involved in. So that's why I thought, like, hey, maybe they would be our fans. I don't know.
Yeah, and all that again is fine as long as you don't actually murder people.
I know that's the part of it where it gets tough. Is like it's like you wonder because like me and you consume this kind of media, and I mean we're totally innocent. Like
Yeah.
it's not those things that make it bad. It's the events that happen afterwards that make it like bad. And on those events, so I'm gonna read out what these guys did, and it's gonna be a little bit numb because it happens so much. It's like who gives a shit? Like murdered this kid, killed that kid, raped that. It's like it happened so much that it's almost like just it's meaningless. So sorry if it comes across that way. Obviously, people's lives mattered, but whatever. Like it happened forever ago, and they just did this a lot. So in 1963, this would be 2 years after they started dating. Dude, Ian got obsessed with Leopold and Loeb. Remember that case?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, this was about like basically two American dandies who thought that they were smart enough to commit the perfect crime, and they were obviously caught and arrested
Yeah, they were not. They were caught very quickly.
very quickly. Ian and Myra, at this time, moved into Myra's grandmother's house, which is awesome. That's a really cool thing to do when you're a man in your mid-20s to live with your girlfriend's grandmother. And Ian, at this point, he literally learned nothing from his obsession with the Leopold and Loeb case. So the entire premise of it was like, if you are of a certain level of intelligence, you can outsmart cops, you can outsmart everybody else, and that wasn't true in the
Right, they
Leopold and
did.
Loeb
They very
case.
much did not do that.
Yeah, they did the opposite. They got caught and sentenced to death immediately. Um, Ian thought that he could do better than them, so he literally learned nothing. He was like, "I hear you, I see you, I can do better than this." He wanted
How
to
much
commit the
crime is
perfect
that?
murder.
Yeah.
Huh?
How much crime is that? You know, people being like, "Oh yeah, that guy got caught, but I totally wouldn't get caught."
Yeah, it's probably yeah. I mean, it's a competition thing at that point. It's like a
Hmm.
sport at that point. So he decided he's going to commit this perfect crime, and he starts kind of figuring out like how Myra can get involved in this. Like again, like I don't know how she seems so bought into anything he said. It just felt like it was a natural progression. They would end up in this position. In this case, Myra was kind of central to what ends up happening, which is why I don't find her as like this victimless or blameless person. She
Yeah.
was a key component of this. So Ian tells Myra that he has a plan. They're going to rent a van, and Myra's going to drive around town. Ian's going to follow her in a motorcycle, and when he sees someone that he wants to abduct, he's going to flash the lights at her, and she could pull over and ask the victim if they want to take a ride. So,
It's a weird ask.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know where you find these people. So in July of 1963, they put this in action, and they end up kidnapping a 16-year-old classmate of Myra's sister, a girl named Pauline Reed. This is the very first one. So Myra pulls over, offers her a ride, and then she says yes, gets in the vehicle because she recognized her. She knew her.
Right, why wouldn't she?
Yeah. And Myra says, "Hey, I got to take a detour. I want help finding this glove, like some luxury, beautiful glove I have. I lost it, and I need help finding it." And the girl's like, "Okay, fine, I'll help." And so they take her to Ian and Myra's home. Ian then somehow convinces Pauline to go into the Moors and look for this luxury, beautiful glove they have, and he ends up coming back alone. That's Myra's story. Brady or Ian's gonna say something a little bit different, but that's the story that we're gonna run with for now. We know for a fact, ultimately, based on confessions, that he when he took her back there, he raped her and then stabbed her badly enough to almost decapitate her. Like he pulled an OJ. Like it was one of
Oh
those
my
things.
God.
And Ian would claim that Myra was actually there the entire time. She took part in the sexual assault. She took part in the stabbing. And that's not the story that Myra tells. And I don't know who to believe. They're both scumbags. So
Yeah.
who's to say, right? Again, this is just going to keep rolling on. 5 months later, they offered a ride to a 12-year-old named John Kilbride. They again say they have to go searching for something. And this time, they say they got to go directly to the moor instead of the house. And once they get there, Ian takes John out of the car, again, sexually assaults him and slits his throat. It's just like, it's so sterilized the way I'm phrasing it, but it just happens over and over. Like, how many different ways can you say raped and like, it's just the same thing over and over
How
again.
big, how big is the moor?
You know what, Taylor? I was going to ask you if you knew what a moor is.
I do know what a moor is. Do you know what a moor is?
I Googled it, so I know what a moor is. Why
Yes,
don't you tell us what a moor is?
it is like a big expanse of rolling green hills.
Yeah, you nailed
It's like
it.
Scottish land, like you'd imagine. I think of moors, I think of in Wuthering Heights, there's a lot of moors. Heathcliff always runs across the moor looking for her. And then also, I bet it's very foggy because my sister studied abroad in Brighton, and my brother and I went to visit her. And every morning we would go on a fog walk because it was so foggy. Him and I would go out to like just like the field that like they would like play soccer in or whatever, but we would be 3 feet apart and couldn't see each other.
It's crazy.
So we would like yell like fog walk and like run, and it was really fun. But I don't know. I imagine it was foggy too.
Yeah, yeah, of course. It's England, right?
Yeah.
It's so the legal definition for a moor is a tract of open, uncultivated upland. So it's like to me, I was just like, it's kind of like a wetter version of Joshua Tree. It's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
basically what it is.
And people get murdered in Joshua Tree and disappear in there all the time. So that actually gives me
It's
context.
just you and Juan just taking out your neighbors left and right.
I mean, several hikers a year disappear. They probably just get lost and die.
They get lost.
Terrible.
Yeah. They for sure get lost.
Yeah.
So okay, so we're at John Kilbride. So 7 months after he's been killed and disposed of in the moors, Myra comes across a 12-year-old named Keith Bennett. She asks him to help load stuff into her vehicle, very Ted Bundy-esque, and then offers to take him home after, which she does, or she says she's going to do. They end up getting in the car. And this is the part of it where, like, I'm like, dude, she's not just some poor put-upon woman. Like, maybe I'm sexist towards myself, but, like, if a man asks me for help, I'm not even going to slow down my walk to offer to help some random strange man. But if a girl asks me for help, it's like, oh, okay, like, sure, like, there's a trust there
Yes.
you don't have with a strange man.
I think that's true. I think that's definitely true. That like a woman I think that's why like Ian and other people have had women partners in crime like this because it's easier to get a kid in a van if a woman asks them. I think that's definitely
Yeah.
true. I also think that Ted Bundy would have 100% murdered me because I would have definitely helped him if he
He's
needed
not
help.
that good looking. Like,
I don't even care.
insane.
I would have helped him. He would have been like, "Hey, can you help me? I have this thing." I'd be like, "Oh, sure, no problem." Like it wouldn't have crossed my mind. I'd probably still help him today. And then I'd be dead and I'd be like, "Fuck, I knew this was going to happen, but I did it anyway."
That's why you don't help anybody. Like, I know that sounds really mean, but it's like, dude, like, everybody's out to get you.
It's not
It's
not the answer.
It's not the thoughts of a broken man. So going back to Keith, so Myra ends up taking Keith to her home, her and Ian's home, and Ian asks him to go help find
Which is the grandma's home.
the grandma's home, who's not home
Got it.
apparently. And again, Ian asks her to go, or asks him to go help him find this beautiful glove he lost in the moor. There, he again sexually assaults Keith and strangles him to death. Next was Leslie Ann Downing. This would have been 7 months after Keith. So like, they actually have like kind of like a pretty protracted, cool off period. It's
Are people
all
in town
5 to
like
7 months.
something's happening?
So later, everything gets pinned on these guys because like these were not the only kids going missing. Like there was like a lot of kids going missing. They're probably all just dying, sweeping chimneys, and just like their bodies were never found.
Yeah.
But like a lot of kids were going missing, and I'll discuss this later on because police are like, wait a minute, we got these people who just keep killing children, and we just got arrested them. There's like another 30 missing kids. Maybe they killed all of these. We don't know,
Right.
but they didn't really draw that distinction themselves until they were caught. So we're 7 months after Keith. Ian and Myra were shopping, and they noticed a girl, a 10-year-old Leslie Ann Downing. They dropped their bags in front of her and asked her to help. She's like, sure, I'll help, because she's 10, right?
Yeah, I know.
And they're like, okay, thanks for helping. Can you help get this in our car? She's like, okay. And they're like, can you help get us in our house? And they're like, okay. And so she's like, it's so fucked up, dude. Like, using the inherent trust that a child puts in people against them, like, it's so... whatever.
And we've had this before. Like that's what you tell kids. You tell kids like a grown up does not need your help.
Yeah.
Like if a grown up is asking for help, like you say no, like be polite, like whatever, but like don't help them. Like a grown up doesn't need your help. They can find another grown up. They can call someone. Like that's a big thing.
TaskRabbit. They have TaskRabbit. Grown-ups have TaskRabbits.
Yeah.
So
grown ups don't need a 10-year-old to help them move something.
So they take Leslie to their house, and while they're at the house, they do the normal thing. Ian rapes and strangles Leslie. And then they take her body out to the morgue to get buried. There's a lot more to this. It's just like, why even bother going to the details? Like
Wait, do they bury them or do they just leave them?
No, they buried them.
Okay.
There's a lot more detail, but again, like I just mentally I don't want to go into it. It's like, yes, they took pictures of her. Yes, she screamed, and they like all the gross stuff you would imagine happened. But it's like, dude, they happened like fucking 20 times. Like, I'm not going to keep talking about every single one of them. So just use your imagination. Yep. So 2 months later came Edward Evans. Ian asked Myra to take him to a railway station to look for a victim, and Ian ended up finding Edward, who is 17 years old. So he's a a bigger human
Yeah.
than these 10-year-olds and 12-year-olds are taking advantage of.
He's out of the chimney sweep business because he's
Out of the
17.
chimney sweep. Yep,
Yeah.
broad shoulders. So Ian apparently told Edward that he was like, this was a hookup. Like, Ian was like, I'm gay, you're gay. This woman with me is my sister. We live together. She's gonna take us home. That was his conversation with Edward. So Edward goes with them. I did not bring this up earlier, but Myra's sister, I brought up Myra's sister before. Her name's Maureen. Maureen was married to a guy named David Smith, okay? And David Smith, Maureen, and Myra and Ian live really close to each other. For some reason, David was also obsessed with Ian and also thought he was the coolest guy in the world and also thought like all these great things about him. Again, like this guy had like weird influence over people around him.
Yeah, that's weird.
And Ian thought that he had a kindred spirit in David, which he did not. He did not have a kindred spirit, but he thought he did. And so this night that they bring Edward home, Ian tells Myra to go over to Maureen and David's house and to bring David over and to like tell him what to do. So she does this. She goes to David and says, come over. David comes over, but it's like staying outside of the house until I give you a signal, then come knock on the door. I no idea why. I literally have no idea why this plan played out the way it did. It sounded incredibly overcomplicated and stupid. So at some point, they flicker the lights and David goes and knocks on the door. And then Ian opens the door and pretends like he doesn't really know him and says, oh, so you're here to collect your wine. Again, no idea why this plan. This sounds like such a stoner plan. Just overcomplicated for no reason. David plays along and then Ian walks him into the kitchen and says, let me go fetch your wine. And leaves David in the kitchen. Then David describes hearing some insane screaming just over and over again. Like he said it was like a woman shrieking. And Myra rushes into the kitchen and says, David, go help him out. They really overestimated David's interest in what their lifestyle was. David goes in and sees that Ian is on top of Edward. He's holding a hatchet, just bludgeoning the shit out of Ian's face with this hatchet.
Oh my God.
And then obviously after being blown in the head enough, he's like sufficiently subdued. So Ian rolls him over and strangles him to death with an electrical cord while David is standing there.
They didn't kill him?
Yeah. Well, they didn't kill David. No, they killed Edward.
No, but I mean, like, hitting him in the head with an axe didn't kill him?
No. Apparently you had to strangle him. Yeah, your skull's pretty hard. Yeah. Your skull can take a lot of damage. Trust me. So after all this, David is like, this was awesome, man. I'm so glad you invited me over. I'm totally coming back later and helping you dig up a fucking grave to move this kid's body into. David's like, awesome, loved it. This is great. I'm gonna go home and I'll come back tomorrow.
Yeah, that's like, that's weird. Like, yes, it might be like a smidge surreal, but like, that's weird.
A little bit weird. What's not weird is what happened after, which is David going home, immediately telling Maureen what he just witnessed, vomiting, like just randomly vomiting as he describes the events.
Exactly.
Again, I read this like, why did Ian think David would be this like chill dude and have like a great time doing this? It did not play out that way. So David, the next morning, he waited until the morning. It was like 6:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, or 6:30, 5 o'clock, or so much like whatever. He ended up calling the police and told them, "Hey, I have a story to tell y'all." The police show up at their house and pick him up and take him to the police station, where he basically confesses about everything, what he just witnessed.
Good. Finally.
Yeah, exactly. So the police would go to Ian and Myra's house and say they need to look around.
I'm sorry. Stop.
Yeah.
Stop. I just got a news update from the New York Times. Ted Kaczynski just died.
No.
At 81.
No way.
Breaking news. Beep, 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 beep. Whoa. He had his cake and ate it too. All right.
That's sad, actually.
I know. Poor guy, honestly.
He just wanted his spoiled milk.
He was given so much shit.
Did you ever watch My Pretty Face is Going to Hell, the Unabomber episode?
No.
Oh my God. They roasted Ted Kaczynski. It was so funny because it's Henry, right? It's Henry Zabrowski. And it was so good. So anyways, it's on Hulu. You should check it out. Going back. So the police show up at the house and say they heard that a gun went off last night and they're just investigating to see what was going on. they look around and Myra lets them into the house. Eventually, they see that there's a door locked to the guest bedroom, and the police are like, "Where's the key to this? We need to go inside this room." That's where Edward's body was. Myra's like, the key to the room is at my work. Like, cool, we'll take you to your work. Ian looks over and was like, just give him the key. Like, it's over. Like, just give him the key. So she gives the key. The police find the body. So obviously, Ian is arrested immediately. Myra's not arrested immediately. It took 4 days before police finally arrested her as an accessory to murder until they actually knew how involved she really was. Once she was arrested, police started finding these little artifacts that like serial killers tend to keep. So they found, for example, like a notebook with John Kilbride's name and information on there. They found naked pictures that they had taken with Leslie. They found audio recording of Leslie's torture. And again, like, police knew that these were missing kids. So when they see the names, it's like, what? There's a pattern forming, right? Because at this time, nobody knows what a serial killer is. Like, this is like the 1960s. Like, nobody knows. The concept doesn't even exist yet. So police start talking to neighbors and asking about Ian and Myra and what they like to do. One of their neighbors mentioned that they would frequently go to this one specific site in the moors, and police started looking there. And there, they found an arm protruding from the moors, from the dirt, and that would have been Leslie Downey's arm, the 10-year-old. So they keep digging, and they keep uncovering more bodies. One thing they did that I kind of found interesting was that they would oftentimes take pictures when they were in the moors, and they had a dog called Puppet. And this dog was like a puppy at certain points and grew up. Police had a hard time knowing like what timelines this all happened. And like they knew that, okay, this kid went missing at this time. There's a picture of them in the moors at this time. Like, what did they overlap? They didn't know. So they had a vet basically apply general anesthetics to this dog to like do some dating based on its teeth or gum work or whatever to get a sense of like how old the dog was to backdate when these pictures were taken. Yeah. Ultimately, the anesthetic they used ended up killing the dog. They overdid it, but whatever. That's kind of one of the things they ended up doing. Poor dog, the last victim. So they uncovered a couple of these bodies. No help from Ian or Myra at all. Both of them pled not guilty, and Ian was ultimately found guilty of 3 of the murders, and Myra was found guilty of 2 of the murders. So like they haven't found all the bodies yet. They just like found what they found, and they started prosecuting them. So they're obviously sentenced to life in prison. And during this time, police would start looking into other murders of children that happened, or not missing children, like not murders, but missing children that happened in and around Manchester. We don't know how many people these guys killed. Like they could have killed so many more, because they never confirmed other murders. They would just kind of say like, "Oh God, maybe we did that one. I don't know." Like, like they weren't sure. There were so many. Yeah. Ew. And she would tell them that like, "Hey, if you take me on the moors, I could probably find like I could probably guess like where a couple more bodies are." And they would ultimately do this. So they ended up taking taking Myra out into the moors, and they just, it was crazy. Like, because they were so sure everybody was going to kill her. They had like 200 cops with them. They had like helicopter protection. They had like aircraft, like anti-aircraft stuff with it. It was crazy. How much. She ended up not finding anything, any of the bodies. And so people were like, this is a waste of time. You shouldn't have done this. So
just wanted to go for a walk.
Yeah, she probably just wanted to go for a walk. It's kind of like Henry, what is his name? Henry Lee Lucas. Yeah, it's one of those.
I just wanted to be out and get some free cigarettes.
Yeah. So Myra ultimately would confess to the murder of Pauline Reed. That was the first girl, a 16-year-old. And she wasn't convicted of that one originally. So after she's been convicted, she's in life in jail. She finally confesses to that. Police told Ian that Myra confessed this. He couldn't believe her. And he said, fine, I'll confess to everything I've done if you give me the opportunity to kill myself after. So he was on the suicide train. Yeah.
I'm not going to do that.
Of course, that was a no-go. That wasn't going to happen. You know what's crazy? I just realized this. Ian almost outlived Myra by 20 years. The guy who wanted to off himself more than anybody else in human history was almost 80 years old when he finally died naturally of natural causes. Wow. It's crazy. So, again, like, this is the point where Myra starts getting all this sympathy from people, and they think that, like, she was forced to do this with Ian. Ian did not get any sympathy at all, obviously. He was a complete monster and was basically, like, legally diagnosed as a psychopath. That meant that he was moved from prison to a psychiatric hospital. So they really don't do like the psych stuff that we do here in the U.S. over there apparently, because once he's deemed insane and a psychopath, he is not legally allowed to refuse medical treatment for his mental health
Wow.
issues. That's important because he keeps trying to kill himself he starts to try and starve himself to death, but legally he can't because food is part of like his mental health treatment, and so
Wow.
they force feed him. So he starts petitioning the government to deem him sane to go to prison so he can find other ways to kill himself, including starving himself to death. He's
Oh
not
my God.
successful, obviously, in this. He ended up dying, and actually pretty recently. It was 2017. He was 79 years old. Yeah,
Wow.
longest serving prisoner in England's history. Crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I'm going to be annoyed at Myra and her time in jail. So she would file endless appeals. And again, with the sympathy people put on her, so they lobbied to get her life sentence reduced to 25 years, which they did. Then later on, politicians were like, nah, that's not long enough, do 30 years. So they increased it to 30 years. She lobbied herself to get her prison classification reduced so that she could pursue a relationship with the warden of the prison, which she did. So she got her classification from an A prisoner, which is like the highest security, to like a B prisoner, which is like less. So that she could go on walks with the prison warden and like have a sexual relationship with her, basically. And the one thing I would say is like the only people that struck me as completely sane in this case were actually the people who they victimized, the parents of the people they victimized. So Myra's
Hmm.
sister Maureen ultimately would die before Myra ended up dying. And the parents of John Kilbright attended Maureen's funeral, just in case Myra intended it, so that they could strangle her and try to kill her. And what's
I
funny
mean,
is somebody else was there that looked kind of like Myra, and the dad attacked and like started battering this poor woman who had
oh
nothing to do with
no.
anything. And Pineapple just pulled her off her. But anyways,
Yeah, I get that
so
though.
that's basically the story. She ended up dying
Wow.
in 2005, I think it was. I never write the exact date down, but she was 60 years old. So
It's so
again,
crazy that they like, lived to like see the internet and like 9/11,
dude, it's crazy. It's
you know?
wild. Yeah.
See all those gays start 9/11.
Fucking Pat Robertson. So, anyways, again, like, there's a lot of details to the story that's just like, God, it's just so gross. Like,
It's so gross.
it's like, why? It's not even fun to talk about. You
Yeah.
know, like at least Jeffrey Dahmer stuff, like it's fun to talk about some of that stuff. But with this, it's just like a bunch of 10-year-olds, man. Like it's an
Yeah.
awful thing.
And like just and kind of like taking advantage of the time. I guess that, like no one really was paying attention, or like kids could just disappear or die in a chimney and you would never fucking know.
It's all about the chimney.
Ugh, that's terrible.
So that's my story, Taylor.
Ooh, gross. Thank you for sharing.
As a future corpse, and who is drinking curdled milk,
Ew.
what are you going to be discussing?
Oh my God, that's so gross. I know I said it, but I still think it's gross. Okay. So I'm gonna try to shake that off. I'm gonna close all my windows where I was Googling Moore's murders because I don't want to see their faces anymore. It's jerks.
They
Okay.
are jerks.
That's the very least I can say about them.
They're just not good people.
No, they're baddies. They're baddies. Okay. You ready? I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Okay. So next Sunday, June 18th is Father's Day. Did you know that?
I've heard that.
Call your dad.
Oh,
So to prep for Father's Day, I wanted to celebrate a story about fathers and daughters. And so talk about the relationship between Andrew and Lizzie Borden. Just-
ooh.
Um,
It was a
so
sexual relationship, wasn't it?
it might have been.
Yep,
So you are first generation American.
it's
Was
true.
Lizzie Borden a part of your life?
I mean, I was two when I came here, so like, I mean, I heard the whole like dirty wax and
Okay.
like, I remember buying a book, dude. It was called Liz Claiborne. Hold on, what's Liz Claiborne? Is that what it was
She's like a
called?
no, Liz Claiborne is like a fashion designer.
Okay, then I'm confusing things because I do remember getting a book and I thought it was about Lizzie Borden and it was about somebody totally different, and then I'm messing up your story and derailing it as
No,
usual.
it's fine. But like you've heard of her.
Yeah.
So and you remember the rhyme, which we'll say in a second. But just for me, like this scared the shit out of me when I was little. Like I feel like it was in my life a lot. Um, I also like associate when I'm doing things with like the media that I'm consuming when I'm doing it. So like the kids' bathroom I painted blue, and it reminds me of Mount Everest because while I was painting the bathroom blue, I was watching a Mount Everest documentary.
Okay, makes sense.
So I remember watching the Lizzie Borden movie. It was like a Lifetime, not the Lifetime movie, the one from 1975. It was like a made-for-TV movie starring the woman from Bewitched.
Okay. Oh, I
And
love her.
yeah,
It's a
and
great
I
book.
remember watching it and being scared shitless and eating fettuccine Alfredo with spinach noodles. So whenever I think about fettuccine Alfredo, I think about Lizzie Borden.
Nice.
I think about her a lot. So we have to, like you said, do the rhyme, which is Lizzie Borden took an axe, gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41. And you like skip rope to that.
It's
So
awesome.
they died. So people dedicated their freaking lives to this story. It is such a fascinating story that people have been like thinking about it forever. And there's a huge Lizzie Borden Society forum, which is like an older looking web forum, and people are active on it today. People are active on it constantly. There's always people on it. I watched the Elizabeth Montgomery movie from 1975. There's a couple other websites I went to. There's a Lizzie Borden Society forum. Something from a website called Criminal Element. I watched a show called History's Mystery: Is a Strange Case of Lizzie Borden. Lizzie Borden had an axe from the Discovery Channel, and I read a book called The Trial of Lizzie Borden. So there's a lot. I mean, there's endless stuff about this story. Several of the documentaries were made like right after the OJ trial, which is hilarious because they were trying to like equate famous American trials together. And one of them was like, we imagine that Lizzie Borden spent her life with these murders hanging over her head, and that will happen to OJ. And I'm like, OJ's fine. He's in
OJ
Florida.
OJ
Yeah.
doesn't care at all.
Yeah, he doesn't give a shit. So like, so. But here are the facts. On August 2nd, 1892, the Borden house is at 92 Second Street in Fall River, Massachusetts. An uncle, John Morse, was visiting the Bordens. Morse ate breakfast served by the maid Bridget with Andrew and Abby, who are like the parents. He left to visit friends around 8:48 a.m. At 9 a.m., Andrew went for a walk. Sometime between 9 and 10:30 a.m., Abby went to tidy up the guest room and was hit 19 times in the head with an axe. Her body lay on the bed opposite to the door, so you kind of had to be in the room to see where she was. At 10:30, Andrew returned and the front door was locked. Bridget let him in, and then she went upstairs to take a nap because she wasn't feeling well. Andrew sat down in the sitting room to take a nap, and he was murdered so violently that half of his head was gone and one eye was totally exploded. So he was like hacked to death. And that was sometime after 10:30. At 11:10, Bridget and a neighbor heard Lizzie call, "Come quick, father's dead." Somebody came in and killed him. So that's like the stuff that we know for sure. And then everything else we're not sure about. So let me tell you about the people in this story. So Lizzie's dad is Andrew Jackson Borden. He was born in 1822. The Bordens were a Fall River like family. They had lived there for generations. They were very wealthy. He didn't have the egg that other Bordens had, but he did make his own fortune. He was a carpenter. He made furniture and coffins. Then he was a bank manager, and he ended up owning a bunch of property, and he was pretty rich. So in today's money, he had about $10 million.
Yeah, good for
So
him.
yeah, so he had a good amount of money. There's another Borden story that happened next door a few decades before, where a mother who is like a great great aunt of Lizzie, Eliza Darling Borden, threw her three children into the basement well and then died by suicide.
Wow.
So they have like another horrible story that's like right in the same neighborhood that happened before. So that's the dad. Lizzie's mom is dead. Her name is Sarah Anthony Borden. She was born in 1823. They had two children, Emma and Lizzie, and Sarah died when Lizzie was 2, just like of being sick and being alive
Yeah.
in the 1800s. So Andrew remarried Abby Borden. She was born in 1828. Her maiden name is Abby Durfee Gray. So she was there's a lot of like spinsters in this story, which means you're like 30 and not married, you know? So Abby
Is
was kind
that
of a spinster.
are they still called Spencers?
No, no one uses the word spinster anymore.
Oh my god, am I old?
No,
Maybe
you're
old.
not 100 years old. No one uses the word spinster.
Okay.
Um, So he probably just needed help with the family, and so there was like an unmarried woman and they were married. It happened about when Lizzie was like 5. Durfee is also the name of one of the banks that Andrew managed, so it sounds like he like worked with her dad and then met her. Initially, she had a good relationship with the girls. They were young and then she was in her 30s when she moved into the house. Eventually, closer to the time of the murders, Lizzie would start calling her Mrs. Borden instead of mother. So they ended
Yeah.
up kind of having a falling out. Emma, the older sister, was also unmarried, and she was agoraphobic. But during the murders, she was out of town, which is weird because she like never left her house, but she was out of
Hmm.
town during the murders, visiting friends. So Lizzie herself, Lizzie Andrew Borden, was born on July 19th, 1860. She was also unmarried. She's 32 at the time of the murders. She taught Sunday school. She was in the Women's Temperance League and the Ladies' Fruit and Flower Mission. Like, she was bored.
So boring.
Yeah, she was so fucking bored. A woman her age was supposed to be spending her time taking care of her family, and like managing a household. Like, that's really the only option. So if she didn't have that option, she really had nothing to do.
Why would
So
you
she was
just
bored.
casually take up like being part of a temperance movement? Like,
Well, she was very religious and like, you
okay,
know,
it's like
you know.
your only favorite thing in your pastime to do is just to kill everybody's buzz. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. I mean, her life sounds terrible. And like her dad has a lot of money, but they don't spend it, which is like frustrating, I think, probably for both girls because they're like,
Yeah.
you know, we might as well be spending this money. But they did spend a little bit, so I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But there's two other people who are in the house at the time. So John Morse is the brother of Sarah, who's Lizzie's birth mom, and he came by to visit. He came by independently, just like randomly, and like stopped by. So he's staying with the Bordens, but he leaves in the morning to go visit, and he's staying in the guest room. And there's also Bridget Sullivan. She's 25 years old. She was an Irish immigrant, and it's such a racist time. So they eventually, I don't even think I wrote this down, but they tried to blame the murders on like a random Portuguese person. They're just like anyone who's like a different, like an other. The Borden family calls Bridget Maggie because their last Irish maid was named Maggie, and they just don't want to bother learning a new name,
That's so awesome.
which
It's
is
hilarious.
ridiculous.
It's like naming your dog the exact same thing as
Yeah.
your last dog. That's
Oh
funny.
my God. So poor Bridget is like, this sucks. And also, like, it's so hot and so Victorian. Everyone's wearing like long sleeves and it just sounds like really stuffy and kind of awful. So I read so much stuff about this, but also the book I also listened to the last podcast, obviously, and the book that they recommend is Bill James's Popular Crime, which is so good. It's such a great book, and he's very funny when he talks through different crimes and like tries to quantify who might have done it. But his facts are, it's almost impossible to see how Lizzie could have committed the crime. And also, it's very, very difficult to understand how anyone else could have committed the crime.
Yeah, I remember that.
Remember
I
that?
remember that. Yeah.
So the third fact that he has is that Lizzie made a number of statements about the case that were self-contradictory and in conflict with the testimony of other persons. So there's that. That part is like definitely true. So here's the scene, and here's the day, and what the kind of like leading up to the day. So we know the people. We're in Fall River, Massachusetts, which was once one of the biggest cities in Massachusetts. Rich people live up on a hill. So there's a hill where you live if you're rich. The Bordens don't live there. They could afford to live there, but they don't. They live in town. So the house is like on a main thoroughfare, like in town. It's Tuesday morning. Lots of people are around. It's not like an isolated place. Andrew was very, very stingy. The house had no water, it had no gas lighting. So, like, those things were available, but they had like kerosene lamps and they had like one water
Mm.
pump in the basement and they had like an outhouse in the basement too, I
I
guess,
don't I
like a
don't
hole.
get people like that.
Yeah.
It's
Like,
like when you hear about Warren Buffett, and it's like he still lives in the same house he bought for $500,000 like 90 years. It's like, why? Like,
this is such a big jump in like modern convenience, Like, how about you don't have to pee in a chamber pot in the middle of the night, You could just not do that. That's available to you.
It'll be
But
kind of fun though. I kind of want a chamber pot now.
I absolutely do not want a chamber pot. I
I
want
would definitely not empty mine. I'll just leave it there
to.
for like 6 months at a time.
That's horrifying. No. No, 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 no. So anyway, it was an old house and they could have done better. But the girls actually have money. They have like an allowance. They get it from a rental house. So Andrew owns a bunch of property. He buys a house for his sister-in-law, for Abby's sister, and the girls are pissed because they want more money. So the girls get the grandfather's house and the money from rent from that. So they have a good amount of money. Eventually they're gonna inherit the money from their dad. There's like really no reason to rush it. So that's kind of where they are right now. Something happened around like 1890, and that's when Lizzie started calling Abby Mrs. Borden. In 1890, also, Lizzie traveled to Europe for a while with with other Borden cousins. So
It's
she
fun.
wasn't like trapped in Fall River. She like, got to go to Europe and like hang out. So
I bet it
she
was
did have some
fucking lame though,
options.
Taylor. It wasn't like me and you going to Europe. They weren't like at pubs, like hanging out and having a great time, playing darts, being locals. Like they weren't doing that. They were like repenting or something. Like it had to have sucked.
No, I bet they were doing what the other half of our trip to Europe would be like going to churches and museums.
Yeah.
Just they just went to bed early.
Ugh.
But all the but all the churches and museums in Europe are nice.
Dude,
Um,
I bet they would have thought they're the type of people that would have thought English food is good.
oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. So a couple other odd things happened leading up to the murders. There was a fight between Andrew and Lizzie, it's presumed, and she had some pigeons in the barn that she was keeping like as pets, and he killed them. So like maybe with an axe. Also, that could maybe not be true, but he had like done this to her pets and she was super upset. There's also, like you said, rumors of incest, but those come later. And the reason that people say that is because, like, he had his two older daughters living at home with him. Like, he never allowed them, or what, for whatever reason, they never went out and got married. The crime was so brutal that it had to be personal. Like any
Yeah.
forensic person would tell you that. Also, this is weird. Andrew didn't wear a wedding ring, but he did wear Lizzie's high school ring that she gave him. Your face is amazing.
That's
That's gross.
that's weird.
That's suspicious.
He definitely was doing something.
So that could have may or may not have happened. There's like so many things on Lizzie Borden forum about it. Like someone just had like a webinar about it. So it's definitely still like something that fascinates people.
But isn't this a point in time when like it was common for for incest in the family?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know any more or less than like now in certain areas. I have no idea.
I mean, yeah, more remote. I mean, look, if you're in West Virginia, like there's
Yeah.
not much. It's slim pickings. It's either family or nothing.
But they're not remote. They're in the middle of a city.
It's true. Okay, you're right. You're right.
But I don't know. Um, There's also some thefts in the house. So someone had come and stolen some money and a streetcar tickets. It sounds like Lizzie was a suspect for those thefts. So Andrew like dropped the charges and like didn't want the police to look into it. So maybe she had done that, but also like she's bored. Maybe she did try to steal some extra money or whatever. So everybody in the Borden house locked their doors all the time after this theft. And the house is really weird. It is a house with no hallways. All the rooms are connected. So when you walk in the front door, there's stairs on the right, and then there's two doors. One door goes to a parlor, and another one goes to a sitting room. So they're both kind of the same purpose, just to like hang out. And then the sitting room goes to the kitchen, and the kitchen and the sitting room both go to the dining room. And then there's a little back entryway and back stairs, and the back stairs go up to the third floor where Bridget lives, and then also to Andrew and Abby's bedroom. You can get there that way too.
Okay.
I'll send you a picture. The other way to get to Andrew and Abby's bedroom is through the second floor. So when you climb up the stairs and on the second floor, there's the guest room where Abby's body was found. That's one door. One door goes directly to Lizzie's bedroom, and her room is connected to Emma's bedroom. Are you
So
looking it up?
weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So
so
everything's kind of
weird.
connected. Hmm.
Like, why
And
didn't
there's
they invent hallways?
hallways. I don't know. I was gonna look this up because I feel like when you go to like when you're in Europe and you go to like Versailles, there's no hallways. You just like room to room to room.
Yeah, you're right.
So I wonder when I was gonna look it up because I remember like when I was in Europe for the first time, someone was telling me how they don't have closets because they used to be charged by the room. So you would have like a wardrobe. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah,
Like taxed by the room. But either way, like also on the second floor. There's a big clothes room. They call it a closet, but it's almost as big as Emma's bedroom. It's a big room. So it's a big room where they like store all their clothes. Emma's bedroom is a small room off of Lizzie's bedroom. And then Andrew and Abby have like a bigger room in the back of the house. So the only way to get to Andrew and Abby's room is through come going up the back stairs, or there's a door between their room and Lizzie's room, but that one is always locked.
yeah,
And so what they do is, again, like it's hot, it's fucking humid. They're all wearing long sleeves. Like Andrew's wearing like a full suit when he's killed, and it's like 80 degrees, and the house is stuffy. Like I when it's hot and I don't have air conditioning, I want the windows open. Like and I want like air to be moving, but air is not moving because every single door is always closed and most of the time they're locked.
Sounds like so shitty way to live.
Yeah, it sounds terrible. It sounds really stuffy. I'm sure it smells terrible, all of that.
Yeah.
So the family had been also super sick leading up to the murders. Lizzie had told someone in town that she thought someone was trying to poison them because they had that bad milk. But like also, they had no refrigeration. They were eating old food. They were eating old fish. They were eating old mutton, like mutton broth. The 1975 movie does such a good job of showing how gross the broth was. Like actually, they show Bridget like almost throwing up, and then like they have show the parents eating it like it's so gross I might throw up right now thinking about it. But essentially, like during this time, because of what the conveniences they had at their house, and probably during all time, like to keep food from going bad, you would keep it constantly cooking.
Yeah, yeah,
You
it's
know,
called perpetual stew or something, right?
yeah. So they really stretched the fish and the mutton, and so everybody was sick. Like it was old. Lizzie was not sick, and that people saw that as being suspicious. But I also kind of feel like that's just smart.
Taylor, I looked this up forever ago, and I'm trying to find it again now. But hold on, where is it? Where is this? I will have to edit photos out. Okay, so there's a perpetual stew in Germany
Ew.
that has been around since the 15th century.
No.
Yeah. There's another in Japan that has had the same broth in their perpetual stew since 1945.
I hate that.
Anyways, okay, sorry.
Exactly. Like in the Middle Ages, looking it up now, there were inns that had a big pot of stew on the fire 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Over time, you added whatever you had, and you never really stopped adding to the pot. Ew,
Super
someone is
gross.
saying like you should make it now. No, you should not do that. Um, I mean, no, hard no. So anyway, it of course made them sick. And so Lizzie wasn't sick, which people thought was suspicious, but also I feel like she was probably just like, I don't want to eat this. I would not want to eat it. She has cookies for breakfast that morning. That sounds 1,000 times better than old mutton stew, you know?
This life sounds so terrible.
It sounds terrible. It's real boring and like dreary. So Lizzie's not sick, which makes people feel like she might have done it. Also, a pharmacist during the trial is going to testify that Lizzie tried to buy prussic acid to clean a sealskin cape. I looked it up. The Metropolitan Museum of Art actually has a sealskin cape in their collection, just like a short fur cape. The acid could have been used as like fumigation, but maybe she did ask for it because she was bored, but also it was probably somebody else. It sounds like the pharmacist just wanted to like be in the news because later a police officer's wife said that she was the one who went in and tried to buy prussic acid because you needed a prescription to buy it, and they were just kind of like doing like secret shopper trying to trick him.
Makes
So that
sense.
probably isn't true. Wikipedia told me that both girls were so mad at their father for whatever reason that they stayed at a hotel for a few days before the murders, but I didn't read that anywhere else. So I don't know where that comes from. And then we do know that Emma was out of town, and which was weird because she never left the house. And then John was there, the uncle, and he never saw Lizzie. Like she came in and didn't say hello. He just like left in the morning, so they never even said hi. So as in the morning of August 2nd, as the events unfold, for the women, Bridget is in and out of the house washing windows, and she was pissed. Like she was pissed that Abby asked her to wash the windows. It was hot. She didn't want to do it. She had food poisoning. Like she just didn't want to do it, but she was in and out of the house. Lizzie is puttering around the house doing like normal Victorian lady things. She's ironing handkerchiefs. She says that she goes to the barn to look for fishing lures for an upcoming trip. So they had like a small yard, but they had a barn in the back. So she's like rifling around the barn, doing Victorian stuff. She also stays in the yard and eats 4 pears. And people are like, that's so weird. Why would she sit there and eat pears while her parents are being murdered, you know? But I'm sure she was fucking hungry, and it makes sense to eat a fresh pear rather than old stew.
That's the most exciting thing that's happened so far.
Yeah,
You get a
that
pair?
makes
Like, that's
much sense.
amazing.
It sounds delicious and fresh, and that sounds great. So she's eating pears in the backyard, kind of just hanging out. It's hot as fuck. She's wearing long sleeves. So Lizzie said that Abby got a note from a friend that was sick and needed help. So it's evidence that people liked Abby. She had a lot of friends. So it's possible that that happened, but there was never a note. Like no one ever found the note, so they don't know. So she was saying that Abby was out. So sometime in the morning around 9:30, Abby is killed. So she's cleaning the guest room. She is axed in the head, and Abby weighs 200 pounds. She falls. Someone would have fucking heard it. You know, you would think. but she falls. Someone would have hurt her. We stayed in a house that's like this age in Columbus, Ohio one time, my family, and you could like see the first floor through the second floor. Like it was like the house was old, you know. I'm
You
sure
mean
that
through
like
the wood in the
through the floor.
floors?
Yeah. Like there was no like insulation, you know, like I don't think that like it would be you wouldn't miss it if someone fell.
Yeah.
You know, if
Yeah.
someone like dropped a book, you wouldn't miss it.
Right.
You know, you would
Right.
hear it. Andrew comes home and he can't get the door open. So he's annoyed, but like also all the doors are locked and he can't get it open and the door is locked. And Maggie tries to get the door open. Not Maggie, I'm sorry, Bridget. I wrote Maggie. What's it called?
You're doing the
I'm
exact
doing
same
it.
thing.
So Bridget tries to get the door open and she curses. And she says that she heard Lizzie laughing on the stairwell when she cursed. So either she was laughing because of the bad word, which is what Bridget thought, but also the spot that Lizzie was standing on the stairway was the only place where you could have seen Abby's body. Because you had to be at a certain point on the stairway to kind of see like underneath the bed into the guest room and
Yeah.
see Abby
Yeah.
laying on the floor. So that may or may not be true. Bill James thinks it isn't true. He thinks that she didn't hear her laughing, but like, I don't know. Andrew takes a nap in the sitting room. In the pictures, he's sitting on the couch with his head on the pillows and his feet off of the couch and his shoes are on. So like, that's weird. Like, do you take a nap like that? But also, he's a lot taller than the couch, so you wouldn't like see him cuddle up. He wouldn't like be a cuddler. But also, he just like he's in a really weird position. So I wonder if like he fell, but I don't know. So
Kelly, can I posit a working
yeah,
theory I have here?
yeah, yeah.
Because so much about this case is based on like what normal humans would be doing or wouldn't be doing or experience. And
Hmm.
these people are like total freaking weirdos, right?
Yeah,
Like, is it really, would I think that it's weird if Andrew were to go to sleep in a full tuxedo at noon in
yeah,
95-degree weather? Probably not,
exactly.
because he's a
Yeah,
fucking weirdo. They're all weirdos.
that's true. Exactly. Yes.
Just an
Like we
aside.
don't know. Does he do that every day? I don't know. Like he very well might. It's a great good point. Yeah, do weird stuff. So Lizzie calls, someone yells out, someone's killed father. Neighbors start to come. Bridget goes to the Dr. Bowen, the family doctor, to get him to come. The police come, and I'm sure you remember this, but the police is like the B squad because everyone else is at like the county fair.
Yes.
It's like the police
Yes.
day of fun, and most of the police are out of town.
I
So they
remember
send the B
this.
squad to help. They've never seen anything like this, and this town is they're like dealing with drunks and dealing with like petty crimes. They're not dealing with axe murders for the most part. So also like the murderer could still be in the house. Like potentially they are because Lizzie's there. Like who knows? So people start coming in and out of the house. The police do take pictures, which is cool because that's pretty new. It wasn't a thing to take pictures of bodies, but they don't take the pictures until about 3 p.m. So it's been like 5 hours since they died. And they've definitely been touched and like moved around. But they take the pictures, so we have those. A neighbor, Mrs. Churchill, finally asks, "Where's Abby?" And Lizzie said, "Oh, she went out." And then they go for looking around for her, and then they find Abby's body. So they don't find it until after the police are already there.
It's wild.
Yeah. So some other things that they find in the house, there's a bucket full of bloody rags in the basement, but Lizzie says that they're from her period, which they very well could be. Having your period is terrible. It was terrible. So they also find an axe with a broken handle covered in ash in the basement. So they think that that may have been the murder weapon, but they're not sure. But also, like, there's no footprints or handprints. Don't you feel like if you axed someone to death, you'd have blood on your, like, have to open the door?
So,
Like,
so that's the part of it where I'm just gonna say my piece of this is like, I don't think she did it only because I'm looking at the crime scene photos. Dude, this guy's face was butchered,
yeah, it's
like
gone.
absolutely gone. Like there's like the fact that there was no blood on her, and if she's like, "Oh, I was on my period," there's no way you would confuse like what is her period like 50 gallons? Like
Right,
you
because it
know
got all over
like
her face.
yeah,
No.
it would be exactly. So like so
Yeah.
that's the only part where like I'm just like super not, in the Lizzie's probably not guilty camp is because the blood
Yeah.
is not there.
And I mean, my whole life I thought she did it. So this blows my mind because I feel like maybe she didn't. Because of that, because she was so clean. And also Bridget saw her between the murders and said she was clean. So she would have had to like clean herself off, change, and then do it again. So
And they
they
didn't
also
have
had
plumbing. They didn't have plumbing,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it would have been really, really hard. But I also just feel like anyone would have trailed blood like through that house and they would have had to leave the house covered in blood. So that, and no one noticed on like the street. So like maybe they were wearing like black clothing and you just couldn't tell, or maybe they were the butcher already covered in blood, stuff like that. That like it could have been, but it feels like someone should have saw something if like
Yeah.
another person had been there. They do the autopsies at the house and they
So
leave the bodies
crazy.
there. So they leave the
So
bodies there like
crazy.
overnight with the girls, which is crazy. So the next few days, the bodies do go to the morgue, and then they get sent to Harvard, and a man named Dr. Ed Wood performs another autopsy on them. He takes the heads and boils them, so he has just the skulls. So they're buried up without their heads, and he has the skulls. Also, Lizzie does something super suspicious. She burns a dress. So she probably did it in front of her sister and a friend, and maybe in front of some like other people. But she was like, "Oh, we're just cleaning up the house." Because also the thing I just thought about is who the fuck cleaned up the blood? Probably poor Bridget.
Right.
And so she has a dress, and she's like, "Oh, this old dress has paint on it." People ha knew that she had a dress that had paint on it for real, but she burned it in the stove, which was like normal. You didn't really have like the garbage men coming by, so you would burn things. But she did it in front of her friends, and they're like, "That's the worst thing you could have done." Like now everybody knows that you burned a dress. Like maybe it was covered in blood, you know?
Right.
I don't know why she did that. Why didn't she just do it when she was alone? You just do it in the middle of fucking night, you know?
I mean, what was her excuse?
She was like, "Oh, I just had paint on it," and I just was like, "I'm just like doing chores, like normal chores."
Again,
So maybe
again,
that's
again, these are weirdos.
right.
That's a weird
Yeah,
thing to do, but like it could be totally normal for them.
exactly. Yes. Super weird. Um, so Lizzie she doesn't act like, again, like they always say, like you never know how you'll act in like an emergency, but Lizzie acts like kind of suspicious the whole time. But it's also because Dr. Bowen is giving her a shit ton of morphine. She is high as fuck. She is like totally out of it. So she's definitely confused. Also, like there are thousands of people coming to Fall River to see the house because they will forever. Like people are there right now, staying the night. It's a bed and breakfast. Like it's the
Is it
same.
really?
Oh yeah. I mean,
That's
100% me to go there.
we
Everybody.
have to go there.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. So like there's like museums, like the whole town. This is it. This is all Fall River has. This is Lizzie Borden story. And of course, like if my neighbor was murdered, I would be over there right now. I would definitely want to see. I'd be like looking at it. Um, Also for the murders, the Borden sisters offer a $5,000 reward in the paper for the murderer. So this is also just like the OJ case. Like no one bothers to find the real fucking murderer.
Yeah.
Like after the person's acquitted, they're like, cool, guess that's it. And you're like, what? You're
Yeah,
saying he
there's
didn't
gotta
do it, then who
be.
the fuck did it? So Lizzie was charged on August 8th, 1892. She spent 11 months in jail before her trial. What are you looking at?
Dude, Taylor, you can book. Wait, how much does it cost? Hold on. Oh my God, you can, Taylor, you can stay in Andrew and Abby's bedroom for $300 a night.
They didn't die there, but that sounds great. Can you see in the guest
Wait,
room?
no, Abby did. Abby died in her room.
No, she died in the guest room.
Damn, okay. Wait, hold on. So let me see if you can do the guest room. No. You got Lizzie and Emma's suite. You got Bridget, Hosea, John Morse.
Well, John Moore stayed in the guest room.
Yeah, let's see how much that one
I mean, I can
was.
look it up too. This is the silent part of the podcast. Official Lizzie Borden house. See our rooms. Oh, they have
Dude,
two.
300 bucks. It's like consistently 300 bucks. That's crazy.
Yeah, the
This
John B.
is,
Morse suite is the guest room. That's where Abby Borden was found. 300 a night. Bridget's room.
you,
Three people can stay in Bridget's room. Oh my God, it's so funny.
hey, would you would say that, right?
For sure.
Which room?
Oh, there's so many rooms on the third floor that they don't talk about. It's weird. I would want to stay in Lizzie's room, even though it's not where anybody was murdered. I want to stay in the room that she lived in.
Yeah, I agree.
But wow, it's interesting that looking at this, that there's Bridget's room and there's also two other bedrooms on the top floor. So like, who knows? I don't know. Maybe someone could have hid up there. I don't know. Also, wait, just scroll down. It says no alcohol is permitted on the property. We have already had two fatal head injuries in the home. That's funny. I
I
think
mean,
it's a
yeah,
joke.
that's a temperance people. Oh, okay. Okay.
But yeah, no, that sounds awesome.
Is that house
Um,
for?
okay, cool. Anyway, this is fun. People should go there. You can get a
Yeah.
tour, a ghost tour. That also sounds fun. A ghost hunt nightly from 10 p.m. to midnight. So if you're staying there, you can be part of the ghost hunt. Okay, anyway, that sounds great. Let's definitely do that. So The trial started on June 5th, 1893, which is 130 years ago this week is when it started. It was in Taunton, Massachusetts. It had to be moved for like jury purposes. During the trial, Lizzie was very quiet because she was like on all these drugs. She was chewing on her fan. It was so hot. She did laugh at one point when there was like a funny witness talking about dresses. So she has feelings, but most of the time she was just like really quiet. The jury is all men, of course. There's a picture of the jury that is on Wikipedia. They all look the same. It's like very bushy mustaches, just like white dudes. Actually, black black men could serve on juries since 1860 in Massachusetts, but it was this one was all white men. Women didn't serve on juries till 1951 in Massachusetts.
Wow.
Yeah. So but women were there. Women from all over brought food, had picnics outside, tried to get and see it. It was just like there are women all around, just like of course there are. Like this is the most exciting thing that ever happened. They're gonna hang out
Yeah.
around the courthouse. Her lawyer was a former governor of Massachusetts. He was very expensive, but very, very worth it. It was like a dream team. They poised her as a good Christian woman who wouldn't dream of doing such a thing. One crazy thing that happened during the trial is they brought the skulls into the courtroom to show the brutality of the crime, but they didn't tell Lizzie or her sister that they were going to do that. So Lizzie fainted right away.
It's kind of a fun day. It's
Yeah,
kind of a fun
it's
day at court.
exactly a fun day at court. She also at one point cried until she threw up, so she does have like emotions, and it's also really fucking hot. So there's stuff happening. But the jury deliberated for an hour and a half, and she was acquitted. So it
Yeah.
happened real fast. Um, After the trial, Lizzie does move up to the hill. She buys a big house up there. There's a summer bedroom and a winter bedroom. There's 14 rooms. There's Tiffany lamps. She has servants. She names it Maplecroft and has a sign made out of concrete on the steps. So she lives in this like lavish house that she presumably always wanted to live in. She changed her name to Lizbeth Borden. I don't know. She changed her name to that. Um, but nobody loves her. Like while she was in the trial, people were like on her side, but afterwards, like don't want to be associated with her. So like her life was essentially ruined. Like she got the money and she had to live in a nice house, but she didn't have any like friends. She didn't get to be a part of the like society that she'd wanted to be a part of. But she also never left Fall River. She could have left, but she didn't.
Did she want that? Again, these are weird people. It's like they're just not fun or interesting. I don't know.
I don't know. And like that's also a good point. Like if this hadn't happened, we would never know anything about her. And how many millions of people we know nothing about, billions of people, because nothing extraordinary happened.
Right.
But she had this extraordinary thing happen, whether or not she did it, which is just, I
Did
think, crazy.
she do it?
I don't
She
know.
didn't do it.
I don't know.
Do we?
Um,
What do you think?
Hold on, I'll get there.
Okay.
So later in life, she does become like good friends with an actress from Boston named Nance O'Neill, or New York maybe, but it's like like an actress, and everybody's like it's same with All Time Until Right Now, where like being an actress was like scandalous, and so they think that used to have Nance O'Neill like come over and have these big parties, and the town kind of frowned on that as well. At some point, Lizzie and Emma have a falling out, and they don't speak for years. In all of the films, they stop talking because Lizzie tells her that she did it,
Of
and
course.
Emma's
Of
like, "Ugh."
course.
Like the 1975 film, and so great. Like Emma is played by the grandma from Who's the Boss, and Lizzie comes home and Emma's like, Lizzie, you have to tell me, did you do it? And it just like zooms into Elizabeth Montgomery's face, and her face is very moist the whole time because it's so hot. And the camera pans around her and they sing the nursery rhyme. It's so good.
That's awesome.
And then in the end, there's a Christina Ricci movie. And that one, it ends with her having a party and being like, Lizzie is Christina Ricci. And she's like having this party, and her sister is like, what are you doing? And the party, there's music going off, and Christina Ricci whispers to her sister or something, and her sister's eyes go wide, so she like confesses. So the movies are all like she did it.
I can't believe that Christina Ricci played Lizzie. I gotta watch
Hmm.
that one.
There's also one with Chloe Sevigny and Kristen Stewart that's very, very gay. I'll tell you more about that theory in
Okay.
a minute too. Um, The sisters, Emma and Lizzie, die within 9 days of each other. They die in their 60s. Lizzie leaves the largest amount of money to the Fall River Animal Rescue League, which I also was thinking about when you said that about pets in Manchester in the 1960s or whatever, because this is like the 1920s and they have an Animal Rescue League in Fall River. So there's like some of it. She leaves money in a trust to care for her father's grave for all time, and Lizzie is buried with her parents in Fall River. So they're buried and like all buried together. Um, so yeah, So was it her? I don't know. Bill James, who wrote Popular Crime, says no. Most people on the Lizzie Borden forum think yes. I'm not sure. My whole life I thought it was her, and then this kind of blew my mind because it's like I feel like I thought about it a lot, and maybe she didn't do it. She was mad at her dad. He was mean. Her life was boring. Maybe it was incest, because and then there was such like a violent crime because she was so upset about it. Um, this is before the Man from the Train axe murders, but it is right after Jack the Ripper. So there is like violence in the news, but he didn't use an axe. Like so, but I'm trying to think
Yeah.
of like what was in there. Um, could she have been gay and he like found out and was super upset? Like some people think she was having an affair with a maid, which I doubt, or like she like had a girlfriend, he found out and she's wanted to like live her life. But the big thing is like how could she have gotten clean? That seems almost
The
impossible.
the the only so while you were talking, I was thinking the only way I could buy that she did it was like there was a fit of rage. It was not premeditated.
Hmm.
She cracked them open,
Hmm.
and by some fluke of cosmic luck, all the blood splatter went everywhere but her. That's the only way I can make it work.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean that technically could happen.
Because think about it this way. So like here's a plausibility of this. So you remember Peter Curtin, the vampire of
Yeah,
Dusseldorf?
Dusseldorf. Yeah.
So he would do all these crimes where he would be killing people out in public and go home totally clean, and people would be like, how is that even possible? Like he just like learned that like if you stand a certain in a certain spot, that the blood
Hmm.
splatter would just like avoid you. Like whatever. He like did the math and figured out how to do it. So like
Hmm.
it's possible.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. In the Elizabeth Montgomery movie, they have her do it naked. And then she just like washes herself off afterwards. But the chances of that are really like low because I bet she was never naked.
Yeah.
Like, like ever. Like she probably like washed her body parts separately out of a bowl, like she didn't like nowadays we get naked all the time because we take a shower, but she never did that. So I feel
Yeah.
like she was probably like a perpetual stew, just perpetually changing different parts of her body, like never fully naked. So it would be weird that she would do that because also she's like very
Modest.
rude. Yeah. So some other suspects are, could it be a stranger? Someone said that they heard someone come to the door in the morning and Abby let them in. Um, Andrew had a share of enemies. He was like a bad landlord, like not bad, but like mean. So like, whatever. They could have hid in that hall closet. That hall closet was huge. So they could have gone to that closet, hid, and then killed Andrew. But then also, where's the blood? Like,
Yeah.
just I feel like there have to be footprints, and there just weren't any, which is so weird. Later in life, Lizzie had a nurse, and the nurse said that um, she confessed to the nurse that she had a boyfriend who had done it and hid in the closet, and but then he like ended up leaving her, and that was like what happened. A woman, obviously this is crazy, had a dream that Emma came to her in her dream and said that she did it, that she like, came into town, killed her parents, then went back to visit friends. Um, People think that the uncle might have done it. His alibi was perfect in like a suspicious way, which is like not fair because he had like a perfect alibi. And then think that like also like it could have been Bridget, the maid. She was mad. Obviously, her life sucked, but she was sick and she had to clean it up.
Yeah.
Like either way, she had to clean up. I don't feel like she would do it. Um, so yeah, that's it. We don't know who did it. It's a crazy mystery because the facts don't really tell us anything. And just like OJ, like she got acquitted, but there was no like find the real killer, figure out what really happened. The people were just like, she probably did it, but got off because she was like a nice Christian woman and people couldn't believe that she had done it.
OJ's the one who vowed that he would find the killer, though.
Oh, great. He could just wake up and look in a mirror.
I don't think he's done much work on that.
No, he's not out there investigating,
You know,
taking fingerprints outside Nicole's house.
it's great. It's interesting how like one crime can become so iconic. Like it's a part of culture. Like this website's hilarious, by the way. Like I don't know if you've
Are
gone
you on
through
the
and like looked at it
forum?
more. No, I'm not on the forum. I'm on the website for the house, and it's
Hmm.
so funny. They even have like this section for like you can shop, and they like have this ghost called Lily, the host to ghost doll, and it is terrifying looking. And it's
Oh, let
like
me see.
they have a
Oh,
really
Lily
great
the
sense of
Haunted Doll.
humor.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Strike like Lizzie Borden. Is that a is that like a union shirt? Oh my God, Miss Elizabeth's finishing school, turning girls into sharp young ladies.
Wait, where's the Union shirt?
Well, it says I strike like Lizzie Borden.
Oh, that's funny.
You know? Um,
Yeah, I love these guys. Like if you look at the staff, like they look like a fun group, and they really, I mean, they're doing a lot of. They got a bloody axe for sale. Like
Oh, they
it's
look real
awesome.
fun.
Yeah, they do. They look like
Oh,
you'd have a good time going to a haunted house with them.
I love them. I love that they're all dressed up. Yeah, 100%. Oh my God, Suzanne, give you a peace sign. I fucking love her.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love it. I think it's super fun. It's just like a crazy story. And then also this is like a far-fetched, but I read the book Middlemarch a long time ago, which is a English novel written whatever a long time ago. But one of the things that it ends with a really like a line that reminded me of this. Um, I'm going to read it, but I don't know if it's going to make a sense. But for the growing good of the world is partly dependent on unhistoric acts, and the things that are not so ill with you and me as they might have been is half owing to the number who lived faithfully a hidden life and rest in unvisited tombs. Meaning, like, if you just do good things and live a normal life, no one will ever know, but you're contributing to the future in like the subtle way that everyone does. But when something crazy happens, that's when you become like a part of the zeitgeist forever, and that's what happened to Lizzie.
yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So I'm sure her tomb is very visited, and I definitely want to go. And I don't know, but it also like, if is it another fucking random crime? Someone came to the house and axe murdered them? That'd be
Yeah,
scary.
yeah, the randomness of it, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
I Yeah, this is a roller coaster of an episode.
I know.
It started with celebrating the death of Pat Robertson and mourning the death of Ted Kaczynski.
I know. So much has happened in the past couple hours. Um, ooh, I'm watching that. Now I'm looking at a video of the Borden house. Join us to stay, play, and for a hauntingly fun time. Oh, there's a parking lot in the back now. It's a bummer that the thing is gone. Oh, you can buy a bloody axe? That's a lot.
Yeah,
You could buy a bobblehead? Brick dust vial? What does that
I
mean?
don't know. I clicked on the brick dust. I thought they would have an explanation of it, but they don't. I have no idea what that is.
EMF detector?
Yeah,
Official Lizzie
they're having
hatchet?
fun.
They are having fun. A pen? A coin for no reason? A mug? A rise and grind coffee mug?
The cookie cutter is a pear.
Oh, no way. I haven't gotten there yet. That's awesome.
They're a fun bunch.
Yeah, crazy. And like, oh, it was a Christmas ornament. That's what I like to get when I go on vacation. I get Christmas ornaments to remember where I've been. So I definitely get that when I go there. Yeah. Oh, Lily the Haunted Doll. Don't love her. Don't love the doll. George from the Ghost. Love him. CBD coffee. Cookie cutters up here. Anyway, what a fun story. I don't know. It's fun. It's scary. It's very of the time. A woman uh, who has to, what a fucking terrible life.
What a terrible life. It's so boring.
It sounds so boring.
It's like
Um,
I would have killed them just for the excitement of killing someone.
what an exciting thing that happened. That you have to live her life in a nice house and have actors over. All of that sounds good. But her dad would have died soon anyway. He was like in his 60s. So I don't know. I don't know.
Such is life. Taylor, we are a little over our time.
Oh, yes, I gotta take a shower and
You got
get
to
dressed
go
up
do your
for.
things. I got to go.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to do with Joe. I guess we'll go for a walk or something. But
Oh my God, hilarious. We'll have a great time.
I
Um,
will. And we're going to start some awesome advertising for the show here shortly, which will be really, really exciting. We're going to get our
yeah, but we got
phone.
like 10 more Instagram followers from me doing Instagram ads.
There you go. There you
So
go.
things
We
are
are on our
happening
way
now.
to being famous any
Again, nobody
moment.
who doesn't know us listens to this because no one emailed me. So it's friends
I
only.
I don't know if that's causation or correlation.
We've done the ask twice. Email us doomedtofailpod@gmail if you don't know us and listen, but no one's done it. So I think it's all friends.
I'm gonna invent a new email address just to email you.
Please make me feel better.
I will.
Yeah, please like and subscribe on all of the things. We're on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook at Doomed to Fail Pod. And that's
There
our
you
email.
go.
If you don't know me, send me an email.
There it is.
Thank
Awesome.
you. Thanks,
Thank you, Tyler. I'm
Farz.
gonna
Have a
go
great
ahead and kill
day.
it. You
Cool.
too.